Hereditary made waves in the beginning of 2018 with its intriguing trailer and interesting plot twist. The story focuses on a family who goes through the process of losing their grandmother, who led a very secretive life and had a lot of secrets she refused to share with them. Little did they know, she had many more than they had originally thought. As we progress in the story, we also get to see the family's own demons and tendencies to want to keep secrets from each other. Whether that be in the father not wanting to share that their late grandmother's body has been dug out of her grave, or in the mother hiding the fact that she's going to self-help meetings to help her cope with the departure of her mother, or even in the later parts of the movie, which are much more intense, where we see the son of the family hide the death and role he played in the death of his little sister, even though it was accidental. Hereditary builds up the sense of dysfunction very gracefully and makes it that more surprising once you reach the conclusion of the story. We focus so much on dysfunction around them that we don't pay attention to all the little details that ultimately do tie to the very end of the story and the purpose of said dysfunction. We almost forget in the few minutes of the beginning that it's meant to be a paranormal-esque horror movie and start to think that the real horror is just how badly the family communicates with each other, something that a lot of us can relate to. Once we make it past the middle or so of the film, it starts to pick up with the death of the little sister, in what can only be described as a very gruesome and emotionally packed performance by Toni Collette as a mother dealing with the knowledge of her daughter dying, but dying due to the lack of care provided by her older son. Peter, the mom's oldest son, being more concerned with getting late than taking care of his little sister Charlie, and his need to fit in with a crowd of other teens make him neglect his little sister at said party. Not a great idea on the mother's part, however, to have her attend a party with much older kids, as most of us know how these parties tend to go. Her daughter, Charlie, eating a slice of chocolate cake containing nuts, which immediately sends her down an allergic reaction and makes it hard for her to breathe. In a moment of panic, she opens the window and sticks her head out to try and gasp for air, and well, the unthinkable happens. However, in that scene, something interesting that I hadn't picked up at first glance was that on Peter's way there, the paw had a strange emblem which we much later see to be the emblem of said cult. So it was as if the action was already predetermined by some prophecy perhaps, maybe even a curse placed upon the family by the cult. Another curious aspect that I would realize after rewatching the movies a few times, Charlie at the end was revealed to have harbored Demon King Payman the whole time within her, which is why her mother was so hellbent on her being born as a boy, as Payman needs a male host. So I think that Charlie being female probably made it so that Payman couldn't harbor his full powers, but he ended up living, for the most part, as a regular girl. The real Charlie was probably killed at birth by a ritual to put Payman in her body. The reason why I say this is because in the end you see Peter become possessed by Payman, but the cult leader calls him Charlie and says that he was in fact the Demon King, Payman. On top of Peter's expression having some similarity to the often dazed look that Charlie has, parts of the movie hints at this when we see, for example, Charlie cut the head of a pigeon after class, or when we see her watch over her grandmother in the backyard who's lighting a fire, as well as her weird tics and the constant drawings of people around her that she makes that we later see once the cult starts to take over. Those same drawings start to be made of Peter before Paimon fully possesses him as the new host. The mother of the family often mentions how the boys in the family always seem to have a lot of mental issues, which we know now to be the effects of the cult's rituals and Paimon's trying to possess them. The ties the grandma had to the cult and the power she had given them over her life obviously was too strong to combat, which led to the very end of everyone, regardless of how hard they tried not to fall, as if it was already predetermined for them. The way Hereditary handled the premise of the story made you revisit it once you had watched it already to see what you had missed, and made you have to pay close attention to some dialogues and clues. I found that to be really well executed. I enjoyed how not obvious it was, which a lot of horror movies nowadays seem to have a hard time doing. While slow in the beginning, it is well worth it once it starts to pick up, and overall, it was an enjoyable film that made me want to revisit it many more times with other people who hadn't experienced it the way I had.